Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the NKU Sports Talk Show. I'm your host, Josh Cobb, with Noah Miller and Brian Bauer. We're here at Heritage Bank Center, the home of the Cincinnati Cyclones. As you can see, we have the play-by-play man for the Cyclones, Andrew Mossbrooks. Andrew, thank you for coming on with us.
Yeah, hey, I'm happy to be here. What's going on, guys?
Yeah. Would you answer? How's it going?
Oh, man, I asked what's going on, and then you just sit there.
Yeah, my bad. I've been the one in contact with you the whole time, too.
You have, to be fair.
I don't know why I'm acting like we never met, because we have.
The third time, twice today. I've been kind of running around. You guys have been doing your thing, but thank you guys for coming out. This is so cool, and hopefully the backdrop of the ice is pretty nice.
Yeah, this is cool for us.
Oh, yeah. Thanks for letting us come out and do this.
Yeah.
You can't do this every day.
Well, it's cool. You guys make me feel like I'm more famous than I am, which is not at all. So.
Well, hopefully your views can go up.
That's right. Exactly. Yeah. At Mossbrooks48 on Twitter. I don't want to have to pay for Twitter Blue.
Yeah. All right. So I'll start by asking a question. I'll start with, so I know I asked Justin this, but you just want to talk about like where you're from and just how your play-by-play career got started and when you kind of realized you wanted to do that.
Yeah. So I'm from a really small town about 8 hours away from here called Sunbury, Pennsylvania. So there's like 2,000 people in that town. But I have family in like the Philadelphia area. So that's kind of the city I identify with. I'm a diehard Philly sports fan, specifically baseball and hockey. But one day I was like playing Xbox as a kid, and I started like randomly trying to mock the commentators on TV, and the people I was around were like, dude, you actually sound pretty good. I was like, whatever. But I never thought anything of it. And then when I graduated high school, I wanted to go into business. And then like 3 months before I graduated, I was like, never mind, I don't want to do anything with my life. I just want to keep playing hockey. And I actually so I don't really talk about this a lot. I found a loophole in the USA hockey system because I was playing varsity sports and we played hockey for a team called the Sunbury Stampede. This is going to be a really long story, so I apologize.
No, it's fine.
We have plenty of time.
I hope you do, because you're going to have to edit this. It's going to be a 3-hour interview. That's what I'm aiming for. So I was playing my senior year in high school, obviously, and then I graduated, but my birth year is 95, and it somehow worked out in the USA hockey system that because I wasn't playing for our high school team, like we were in a small area, so we actually had like surrounding school districts make up a team of 20 or so players. As a result, I was able to still play what you would call high school hockey after graduating high school for 1 year.
It's kind of like a COVID year.
Yeah, so I just Billy Madison'd it, and I was like, well, you know what? I really don't know about college, so I told my parents at my graduation party that I did not want to go to college yet. I said yet, and I told them that I would try to go probably the following year. I knew of the loophole in the system, so I just kept playing hockey and watching hockey, and just, that really took over my life. And it was during that year off that I, like any other day, was watching a Philadelphia Flyers game when it was on. Jim Jackson's their TV play-by-play guy, and I'm listening to him, and I'm like, wait a minute, like this guy is talking about hockey. He's got to be getting paid because it's his job, and I imagine he's making pretty good money. So, like, why am I not doing this? Because I know I'm not going to be good enough to play pro. So how can I stay in the game? And then I had talked to my parents about it, and finished that year out playing, and applied to a couple of different colleges. Went to Millersville University, which is, again, kind of in the middle of nowhere town. I say that. I mean, Lancaster, Pennsylvania is where it's in. It's not, it's a medium-sized town, but, like, it's Amish country. Like, all back roads and horses and Mennonite and whatever. And, but I went there and I studied in broadcasting, and once again kind of lucked out into something where when I started, my predecessor there had just graduated, just moved on. I went there to also try and make the hockey team, which I didn't. I was terrible in tryouts. And but it worked out because like a week later, they messaged me and were like, hey, I heard that you're a communications major at Millersville. Like, I think somebody said that you want to broadcast. Like, would you be open to that for the hockey team? And at first I took it as like a slap in the face. Like, no, I want to play. But then I realized, like, well, longevity-wise, this makes the most sense. And so that's how it worked. And a couple years went by, I graduated, got an internship, worked for a couple of teams before this. And after sitting on my couch for a year during the pandemic, Cincinnati called, and I got the opportunity, and here I am talking to you great gentlemen.
And I would say, especially in this area, and I've had a little bit of experience with this, but connections like that are very important.
Oh yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, I forget if we talked about this the first time I met you guys, but I asked my boss here in Cincinnati. I have two people that I answer to. So in this case, I'm referring to Sean Len, who is Heritage Bank Center's director of PR and marketing. And I asked him after I got hired, probably a week or two into the office. I said, just like, I don't know if you want to go into the process, but if you'd be willing to divulge what information you had. And he said, sure. And I did not know my predecessor here, who name is Everett Fitzhugh. He's the first broadcaster of color in the National Hockey League for the Seattle Kraken. So I had huge shoes to fill. And I made the mistake of never reaching out to him. And so when you talk about connections, when I saw this job opened, there I was in the summer of 2020 kicking myself thinking I need a job right now. Like the team I had been working for in Peoria, Illinois, was not going to play that year. Cincinnati ended up not playing either, but I didn't know it at the time. And I was fortunate that one of my connections knew Everett. So, long story long, when I had this conversation with Sean here after eventually getting hired, and I said, what led you to deciding on me? The first step, he said, is we needed to, sift through a lot of applications. So they had like 200 people literally for one position. And I guess they went to Everett. He was going to the NHL. And I may not be getting this story verbatim, but it was something to the effect of, hey, we know you're leaving. If there's one last thing we can ask of you, we know you're really busy, but here is 200 names. They did not give him resumes. They did not give him demos. They just gave him a list of names, and they said, is there anybody on this list that you know of? And fortunately for me, one of my friends knew Everett and put my name into him. So even though Everett and I had never, we've since built a rapport, but we never had one going into this position. And luckily for me, my friend knew Everett. Everett scrolled through the names, and whatever he whittled that list down to, he must have saw Andrew Mossbrooks and said, yep, I've heard of him. And if that never happened, I wouldn't have even gotten to look, more or less, and then let alone, where I am now as fortunately the voice of the Cyclones.
That's an insane story. That's crazy to hear, because it's almost like a what are the odds type situation.
1 in 200.
It's almost like a blessing.
Yeah, no, what are the odds? I mean, they were 1 in 200. That's how it was. So, I mean, you're right. This industry is so wide because, as all of you will go on to graduate, and any student that would be listening to this at NKU, unless you have a family connection or a connection of any kind that is really strong, like my man over here with WCPO, unless you have that, you literally have to cast a net nationwide, because it's not as easy. We were talking about this off air. There's something to be said for people that want to be bricklayers and work construction, because a lot of them can find that job in their backyard. I was not able to do that. And this industry is so competitive because so many people want to do it. I mean, you think about it, like, I'm on camera with you guys. You asked me to be on here, which is, you talk about a blessing. Like, I'm fortunate that anybody would want to talk to me. I'm fortunate that at 7:30 on a Friday night, I get to stand a little bit back behind where we're shooting this, and I get to watch what's being played out on here. And thousands of people are coming into this arena paying hard-earned money to see this team play. And I get to narrate that story. Like, it's so fortunate, but as a result of it being such, you have to be willing to move. For me, it was Cincinnati, which is awesome because this city is great. But before then, it was Peoria, Illinois, which I still have a lot of relationships back there. It's a tough town, man. It's a tough place to work, and there's not as many amenities. And could have been that. My friend who I entered this industry with went from where we grew up and where we went to school in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, to Albuquerque, New Mexico for a job. He's in Odessa, Texas for a job now. There's no blueprint. It's not linear, and it's tough. But fortunately, it's an industry we love so much, and that's why we do it.
Yeah, has hockey been the only sport that you have called, or did you start out at hockey? dabbled in some other sports, or has hockey been the only sport that you have called?
I mean, it's the 1A, I would say. I've learned to have a passion for baseball. I interned for a baseball team out in Lancaster, and I inadvertently ended up being the voice of a National Lacrosse League team for half a season in Philadelphia, which is like awesome because, you know, their guy had parted ways with the team mid-season, and I was basically interning with the Philadelphia Flyers. And this is a big deal, by the way. Like the National Lacrosse League, I know lacrosse is not, you know, the big four in terms of sports in North America, but they were playing in that building, the Philadelphia Wings, and my boss with the Flyers, because we were owned under the same umbrella of Comcast Spectacor, came to me and was like, hey, do you know anything about lacrosse? And I was like, I had a feeling why he was asking. So I was like, no, but I can learn it really quick.
Yeah.
And so I did like a tryout game for them, and they liked what they heard. So I got the chance to work for the Wings for half a year. That was cool. But aside from that and baseball, what else have I called? No, I mean, no, that's it, really. I mean, like I had an opportunity to do football at Millersville. I turned it down to stay with hockey, which worked out because, you know, over the course of my 4 years at Millersville University, the Marauders football team, despite having the nephew of former Pittsburgh Steeler Troy Polamalu, they won 3 games in 4 years.
Oh.
So, you know, that is a good challenge. I will say I've been spoiled with a lot of really good teams in hockey, lacrosse, baseball, the little bit that I've done. But I will say that is a great challenge, not to get off the track here, but if you are a broadcaster who has to, and I'm sorry if NKU has any of these teams, hopefully you don't, but if you ever broadcast for a team that is not good, that will challenge you more than most things do in broadcasting, because you have to find points of emphasis to talk about when, you know, Millersville's opening night for football, they lost to a team 66-7. You have to have a lot of prep to keep those listeners interested, because a lot of them are ready to go home and they're ready to turn it off and they want to watch something else.
Yeah, I'm going to say I've been one of those fans that watch a game on TV and I'm like, this isn't good. I'm going to bed. I'm turning this off.
Yeah.
So
I've done that a couple times.
Haven't we all?
Yeah,
Right?
and then at that point, a lot of the announcers, they just start talking about whatever.
Yeah.
Can one of you be remotely close to on the
I
same
think
topic?
That's where you find the most skillful announcers, is when the teams are bad.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, these guys can still tell a story, try and be entertaining as best as you can.
Yeah. And you're so right, because at the end of the day, like in that score I referenced, or like as I mentioned, you know, my fandom, like the Phillies have gone through a number of years of really, really bad baseball over the last few seasons. And if the game is, I was at a game where it was, they were down 11-0 in the third inning. You know, if you're the broadcaster, I bet you wish you could turn off the mixer board and take the headset off and go for a break. And the fans probably did. And I don't know how many people are listening to innings 4 through 9, but at the end of the day, whether there's 10 or 10,000, you're on air and you have a job to fulfill. So, you know, we were with the Cyclones, to give another comparable example. And I've talked about this with the coaching staff, and, you know, our team, as you guys talked with Justin Vive, like, we have a great family down in our dressing room. I'm fortunate enough that I'd like to think they consider me part of it. They certainly make me feel like I'm an extension of the team. And we call it for what it is. There was a game last year, we were in Fort Wayne, and we were down 6-0 with 5 minutes to go in the first period. Needless to say, we were not going to win that hockey game. I'm sorry, I just knew we weren't going to win.
yeah.
And, you know, I now have 45 minutes worth of game time, plus intermission, plus commercial breaks to fill airtime. And, like, I don't know how many people were left listening, but that's where all the preparation that you put in, not to say that I'm one of the better broadcasters, I don't know, I would have somebody else listen and tell me, but all the preparation that you put in is for that, because I'm probably done speaking about how many goals, assists, and points they have certainly done talking about a win streak if there was one. But instead, maybe I'm saying, hey, Justin Vive's dad is Rick Vive, who's a legend with the Toronto Maple Leafs, one of 260 goal scorers in franchise history, or a player that, came from a family of 5 and, his mom was a waitress and his dad wrote for the local paper. Those stories keep people engaged and they can kind of take you away from the game, which in that moment you probably need.
And would you say that besides the just typical stats that everyone could just get on the internet and look up compared to those stories like you just mentioned, I've listened to some broadcasts from where they start telling us a story about this player or their early life, and I'm like, oh, that's really interesting, and it's got me hooked.
Yeah, no, I think we do that. I think, depending on who the person is and depending on what the game is, like we're doing this interview. I know this is pre-recorded, but to break the fourth wall, we're doing this interview on a Thursday after a Wednesday game.
Yeah.
Where the Cyclones won 3-2 against the Wheeling Nailers and they scored a goal with less than 5 minutes to play. Now, in that situation, I'm barely using any prep because the game is so good. It's telling its own story and I'm just there to narrate. Now, they play again on Friday, and even if the Cyclones are up 6-0, I'll bring up the stats because, I work for the Cyclones. I'm employed by this team. I need to talk positively about them. But, at some point, this game the other story this game is told is that this game is probably over. So now I need to bring in those other, that other anecdotal information. And to your point about being online, look, I can give you the websites to find where these guys played and what points they had, but it's up to you if you want to go down the rabbit hole and try to dig deeper. So if I see he played for this team in 2015 and was second on the team in points, he had 70 points. That sounds like a lot of points. Now I can click on the team. Now I can find out, he was second on the team. Oh, well, the guy that finished first is in the NHL right now. Okay, well, let me go find that guy. And let me see where he was drafted. And let me see if they played on a line together when they were playing, 7-8 seasons ago. And then on top of it, you can sometimes find the family tree online. We had a guy from Toledo that played the other night. And I looked him up, found out his dad was, and the name escapes me right now, Eduardo Sabrango. Guy had played professional soccer for 21 years, and that was his dad. So I used that story online because I thought, man, that's a really cool thing. A second generational talent. They're in different sports, but those are the things that you, again, need to go down the rabbit holes for, which we've all done when we sit on our phones, right? So,
yeah. So, would it be harder? You said it would be harder to call a blowout than it is a closer game.
Yeah.
So, besides your voice, what would be the best skill in calling a game?
It's a great question. But I would say, I think obviously, yeah, your voice matters. I think in a tie with it, if not more important, is your preparation. And that's what goes into, being ready for anything. So I referenced Jim Jackson with the Flyers earlier. Another guy I idolize who's now retired is Doc Emrick, or Mike Doc Emrick, who was a longtime voice for NBC Sports for the National Hockey League. And he told me before, when I was fortunate enough to meet him, that, he'll put all this prep into a game and he may use none of it, and at most maybe 10% of it. And I've learned how true that is, because the worst feeling you can have, and it's happened to probably everybody, and it certainly happened to me once or twice, is being unprepared. And I don't mean not knowing the names. If you don't know the names, you should not be on the air that night. You're in trouble.
Yeah.
But having just the names and just how many goals, assists, and points they have, what do you say when he's touched the puck for the 25th time that night? I think, a blowout is harder to call than a close game. Baseball is way harder to call than hockey. And that's, a side note, but I have a feeling most people will agree. But it's for the same reason baseball is more difficult than hockey, that preparation in any sport is important. Because let's use baseball for the apples and oranges comparison. If a guy has 4 at-bats, and let's just say for the heck of it, he has 5 pitches on average over the course of those at-bats, that guy has been up there for 20 pitches. And over the course of the night, heck, man, that may be 5 to 10 minutes at the plate. If you have 2 notes about him, you're going to start regurgitating stuff. Now, in his second at bat, sure, you can say, here's Joey Votto, who, lined out to left and, just got under the ball. He was trying, he ended up uppercutting it, whatever. I guess in that case, he would have popped up. But, okay, that's great. That, what you just said, is going to take up maybe the first pitch of his second at bat.
Yeah.
Okay, now what? All right, he's from Toronto, grew up a Blue Jays fan. Okay, that's the second pitch. All right, now what? It's the same thing in hockey. Yeah. So, like, your voice matters, but, like, you've got to have so much preparation ready because you don't know if you're going to use it. But if you do, you feel like a genius when you do. And it keeps the game interesting. And that's what matters most.
Okay, this question's kind of a two-parter, but being the broadcaster of the Cyclones, it involves you to travel, and at any professional sport that you're a broadcaster, it requires you to travel. Did you like to travel before this job? And if you didn't, do you now like to travel? Or vice versa, do you hate to travel now?
Oh, man. This question gets me to smile because it is a love-hate relationship. When I was, so my last job, I worked in Peoria. I worked at what you would call the single A level of hockey. The travel there is like, it's bad, but it's bad. It's bad. I can't sugarcoat it. My last bus trip in that league was a 15-hour bus ride overnight. The only thing that was nice about that is, like, I had a system where I would, we usually boarded the bus anywhere between 10 p.m. and midnight. So I'd get on the bus, hang out with the guys for an hour or two, grab a NyQuil, toss it in, or ZQuil if I wasn't dealing with sinuses, because it's, not right to, why am I taking allergy relief when I don't have allergies? But I would either take a ZQuil or a NyQuil and just clock out for 9 hours. And then the next morning I wake up and I'm almost there. So that would help. But like we also had like a bunk. So same thing with the Cyclones. We were on what's called a sleeper bus. I sleep on a couch on the bus here. The travel is way less. Like our longer ride would be like 7 hours. Our average is like 3. So that's way better. But like there's nothing like sleeping in your own bed. And I'd much rather do that than be at the Holiday Inn. I'm a private person. We share rooms on the road. I stay with our assistant coach, who's a great guy. He's one of my best friends, Alex Becerra. But I think he feels the same way, right? Like, it's just when you're an adult, I don't know what your guys' dorm situation is like, but I would not have went to a college unless, like, I shared a bathroom, but I would not have gone to a college if I did not have my own bedroom. I'm a private person. I like that space.
And that's why I live at home.
Yeah, there you go. Right?
I'm the same way, so I understand.
So travel's iffy, man. If you ask me on one day, I might say, oh yeah, I'm excited to go on the road. I get to, hang out with the guys, and it is fun, and you build camaraderie that you can't kind of develop at home as easy. But I also, I have a girlfriend out here too who, hates when I'm away, and that is one of the biggest challenges in this industry, is being in a relationship. But we love our time together, and hey, I'm 27, but I'm still a kid at heart, and I like to play video games a little bit too, and I can't bring the Xbox with me on the road, so that sometimes sucks.
So what would you say is the biggest, or the worst part of broadcasting? Obviously there's a lot of great parts of it, but what are some of the negatives of it overall?
Yeah, I'll add to this to bounce off your question. Because my question kind of involves your question, but what would be the best thing about broadcasting? And then what he's saying
the best
is what is the best and the worst.
Positives.
So, well, let me ask you, are you asking me the best and the worst of broadcasting, or are you asking me the best and the worst of working in a field in which I do broadcasting?
The second one.
Yeah.
Yeah, in the field.
Okay. So, because the first one, I would tell you the best thing is broadcasting, and there is no bad thing. Because who doesn't like to call a game? I don't even care if it's a blowout, just because I get to do it on air.
Sure, yeah.
Like, what a cool job, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the best part about my job is broadcasting. Like it's so awesome. I never, one thing is when you go through all the adversity and like I said, living 8 hours away from mom and dad, and I'm the oldest of 4 siblings, and being away from my sisters and my brother, like the one thing that makes it all worth it is when my headset is on, or in this case, I've got a microphone in my face and we get to talk. I'm a salaried employee and we're doing this in our arena, so I'm getting paid for this interview. How cool is that?
There you go. Yeah.
But so that's just, it's just so special. Like I think it's one of the coolest things you can do for a job. I genuinely believe that if you're in this industry, sometimes you can complain and you can get mad about other things, but just remember what you do. I try to remind myself that every day. Now, what's the worst part of it? It's a rotation, because I got in this by watching the Philadelphia Flyers and thinking, man, look at all the money that guy gets paid to call games. And then I realized calling games is probably this much of my job. So an average day in the arena for a game day, I would say I'm here 14 to 15 hours a day. And then when you factor in, obviously waking up and, having a breakfast and getting ready for the day, and then, by the time you get home and you're ready to go to bed, like I'll have probably been up 18 or 19 hours that day. So, you're running on fumes at the end of the night. It's hard because you balance all of these other things. The worst part of the job is that, the broadcasting is second fiddle in 9 out of 10 positions to all the other things, which are important and they're fun and I love doing them. But there are times where, if your passion is play-by-play, which is the specific area of broadcasting that I handle, it can be frustrating when you want to prep for the game and all of a sudden, you forgot you have a school visit, or you forgot you have a player appearance, or the printer is down and you need to help with that, or you need to set up notes for all the visiting media. Or, sometimes, we're a small staff, so you have to, put QR code stickers on 5,000 Chuck-a-Pucks that night. Those are the things where when somebody comes by your door, it's very hard to, grin and be like, sure, I can help, because you're like, oh, I really don't want to help right now. Mm-hmm. But it's a team on the ice. It's a team in our office, and you have to be willing to do that. Even, in some cases, like, you have to edit video, you have to do graphic design, you have to help out with social media. Those are all parts of the job. Like, there is no routine day in this industry. It's evidenced by the fact that there's cameras here today with you guys here. Like, this is not a typical thing for us. And it's a part of my day that I need to wedge into the rest of my schedule. I would say the other part that is just so hard is, like I mentioned, about 18 or 19 hours being awake. The time that it takes away from everything else in your life. You miss birthdays, you miss anniversaries, you miss time with your loved ones, you miss time away from home. I'm so fortunate that the Cyclones value our off time, because in the summer they allow me to go home quite a bit and they allow me to see my family. But we had a situation last year where my mom, my gram, who I call Nana, and then my brother and sisters, they all drove 8 hours out here, and we had a goaltender come down from the NHL. They were here for 2 days, and the first day I barely saw them at all. It's just the business, and it's so hard. But the belief is that if you do this and you work your tail off and you give it your all, there's going to be a day where maybe you are in the NHL or MLB or NFL, and you come to the arena or the stadium or the ballpark, and you just put the headset on and you call the game and you leave, and your pay is pretty good too. I'm very happy with where I'm at right now, but that's the end goal in life, is that you get to that point and then you get to be with your family a little bit more. But imagine being in Major League Baseball, guys. Like, it's 162 games. It doesn't matter how much money, you could be a millionaire. You probably won't be, but you could be a millionaire and you're still away from people. So that's just the hardest part, I would say.
Okay, so you're a big Phillies fan. You've mentioned and the Phillies just got Trey Turner.
Oh yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
Love it. I feel bad. We're taking away time from the Cyclones. I knew if I mentioned it, I would walk into this, but how could you not? When you guys were interviewing Justin Vive, I walked over to the doors over here to watch the 1 minute Trey Turner hype video. Like, I am on this bandwagon, man. And they picked up Taijuan Walker to solidify the back end of the rotation. Like, I would have never thought they'd get within 2 wins of a World Series. But man, I'm excited. This team is good. I've got to figure that out too, because the Phillies, you want to talk about the worst part of the job? How about this? The Cyclones last weekend of the regular season, they have a Friday and Saturday in Kansas City. So we'll be on the road. We would leave Thursday afternoon to get out there. And Thursday through Sunday, the Phillies are playing the Cincinnati Reds here. So I need somebody to fill in for me. Or at least I'm going to try and do that. My boss doesn't know that.
There's the negative right there.
If my boss sees this interview, this is going to be the first time he hears about this. But I'm waiting. I'm biding time. And if he says no, I'm going to be like, man, I get it, but come on. Like, it's the only time they're out here. Like, please, you know.
Yeah, that'll be a good game with Nick Castellanos coming back.
Yeah. He was back this summer. I don't think he played well as a Philly. I have reason. I mean, his stats would, indicate that he could bounce back, but he had a tough year in Philadelphia. He moved into Ben Simmons' house, which was the number one problem. Ben Simmons, the previous cancer to the Sixers, who just can't shoot the ball. But Castellanos moved into his house, and people were saying at the ballpark, they're like, Nick, you got to move out. You got to move out.
That's a curse.
It is. It's the curse of Ben Simmons. So hopefully he's talked to a real estate agent and found a new location in the city of brotherly love. And but the Phillies are going to be good.
Oh yes, they will.
Going back to the negatives and positives, have you ever thought of actually leaving this job or doing a different broadcasting job? Or have you been like, I'm just going to stick with this because this is like what I love?
I think so. I was behind you guys off camera listening to the conversation with Justin Vive, and you kind of asked, like, how long would he go at this? I'm fortunate that my body, hopefully holds up. It's not a great physique, but the difference between Vive and I is I can eat 2 cheeseburgers and then work the game. I don't know the last time I've ate 2 cheeseburgers prior to a game, by the way. I don't think that's happened, but just want to point that out. During the pandemic, you kind of get to absorb what that would look like. In my case, I was trying to apply for all these different communications jobs, kind of hoping like, okay, well, maybe I'll get to do something in my field at least, and I didn't. So I went back to working at Sheets because that was my job in college when I was like, paying for books and stuff like that. And I needed a little bit of income, during the pandemic. So Sheets is a gas station for people out in the Midwest that don't know. You guys need one, that or a Wawa, because the gas station game out in Cincinnati, again, I love this city.
It's
way down. I went back to working there, man, and it sucks. It's terrible. The gas stations are great to eat at, but they're horrible to work at. And, that really puts things into perspective. Like, God, like, do I want to do this? Like, I mentioned in high school, I thought I was going to be a business major. Not that you can't do a lot with business, but initially in my head, I was like, oh, I'll work in accounting. And I remember when I was working at McDonald's when I was like 16, that I went to cash my checks, and you'd see the tellers at these banks, and they, no offense to anybody here that has a family member who's a teller, they look like they hate their job. And I have to preface this for everybody, on camera and off. I'm sorry. But it looked so miserable. That's why I didn't go to college right away. It's literally what I told my mom. I was like, these people hate their lives. I don't want to do that.
Yeah, and you're right. It looks that way.
Not to shoot down business people, but I don't think anyone is excited to work at a business. You can get a lot of good money from it, but
and that's the other side of it, right? Again, I'm a professional broadcaster and a professional ranter, as you guys are coming to hear. I don't even know how many questions I've been asked, like 4 in 30 minutes. It feels
I don't even know.
Not many.
I do know we're over 30 minutes.
5 or 6,
really?
something like that.
Oh man, I'm sorry, guys.
Oh no, it is fine.
Sorry to the guy off camera. Just want to point him out. Everybody back here.
Then I'm concerned.
It's challenging. I'll say this. Year by year, though, one thing I've learned about myself is to keep an open mind. So you're asking me right now in, tail end of 2022, I would tell you no, I think I'll be in this forever. But like, I don't know if I'm ever going to have a kid. Like, we talk about being away from family. Like, do I want to, that's a real thing that people are going through. I mentioned our assistant coach, like he had a newborn baby in November last year. I don't know if I'll be able to handle like my son or daughter taking their first steps and I was on a bus to Kalamazoo, Michigan. Like, not to get real deep here. I know we're
it's an important aspect
and something life. Not very many people look at.
Yeah, that's
about.
Yeah, and it's real. Like, it's like actual
real
stuff.
As it gets.
Yeah, like, there's that, or like, I mean, just in general, I don't have the long-term answer. I'd like to think that I would be in this for the long haul because it's so fun. And the other part of it is like, okay, well, if I do decide to leave, what in the world am I going to do? Because I love sports. I love hockey. I have since I was a kid. I get to broadcast games. I feel valued by our organization here. Like it's, as I said to you guys, it's such a fun job to do. But yeah, I don't know. Long term, I can't answer it. But right now, I'm like I said, I'm really happy with where things are.
All right, I'll do the one last question, and
there we go
through each of us. So, I'll let you go ahead.
Me, okay. So the Cyclones are off to a amazing start. Hopefully, they can keep it going.
Yeah.
Would it be special to you? I mean, of course it would. To call the game that they win the division and maybe even the Kelly Cup.
Yeah.
But would you rather have that, or would you rather call a regular season game in the NHL?
Oh man,
good question.
Can't do that to me.
Great question.
That is so bad.
That's mean.
It is a mean question. This is a really rude question.
It's tough.
Would you rather do your job now, or
It's like your top spot of your job at the current job, or just regular season game at a bigger job.
I'm gonna. Okay.
I'll have to put you in the hot seat.
The reason why I'm in the hot seat is because I know my answer. So, like, listen, at the end of the day, I got into this industry to get to the National Hockey League. What it would be like to call a championship. I mean, hey, I don't want to get ahead of myself, but like you said, with how good of a start this team is off to, sometimes you do think about those things and you think like, what would that call sound like? Like comparing it to the last one, which in this organization's case was 2010. And last year I got to, we made it to the playoffs. We lost in game 7 of the first round, but like oh my gosh, man, I was like adrenaline pumping through me in game 7. Like it was so fun. And I thought I had a really good call, which is a great feeling to have, even though we lost. Like just encapsulating the emotion of that situation is so imperative. But the idea of being in the NHL, and especially when you say call one regular season game, because like that's something like when you ask, like, would you ever leave the industry? Well, if I ever did, there's the talk of people saying that, hey, if you're ever going to leave your profession, like pro athletes, they want to go out on their own shield. I would want to have that where I could sit there and say, hey, in 10 years, I'm going to go sell insurance. But you know what? This one time somebody asked me to fill in, and no matter what happens the rest of my life, whether I live to be 60 or 110, I will always be able to say I called one game in the National Hockey League. Like for me, for these players, I think that's their goal too. Mm-hmm. But like you talk about the championship at the end of the year, it's the Kelly Cup. The Kelly Cup is their Stanley Cup. Me making the NHL is my Stanley Cup. It's my Kelly Cup. I'm going to do everything I can in my power to make sure that it's not a one-time situation. I want to be there forever, whenever it comes. But yeah, I would lean toward an NHL game.
Brian?
What would be your favorite moment doing play-by-play?
There's a lot of good ones. That's always hard to try and isolate one. Game 7 is up there. Like I said, I mean, we lost, but it was a good game, and like it's just such a moment. I called a really good overtime winner with Matt McLeod scoring on like an end-to-end goal for the Cyclones last year. That was great. And I've been fortunate. I called the best start in franchise history for the Cyclones When I worked for the Peoria Rivermen, I called their 5th win in a row to start the season, which was their best start in franchise history. Like I said, I've been spoiled by winning teams. And then when I went to do my first game for the Philadelphia Wings, I was on TV in Wells Fargo Center, home of the Philadelphia Flyers, in the booth, and same chair, literally the same chair that Jim Jackson sat in when he was calling Flyers games. Wow. So that was a really cool full circle moment where it's like, wow, like I'm in the same broadcast booth as him and I'm calling a game in this building. Like that, honestly, that one, it's weird because I'm so into hockey, but that moment in lacrosse, like, might actually take the cake for now, but hopefully there's many great ones to come.
Yeah, for sure. And one last question. All of us here, and even people behind the scenes, are even looking to get into the media aspect of sports and love that. So for not only broadcasters, but just anyone wanting to get into that area, what's your number one advice?
Well, the first 2 minutes of this, you mentioned connections. And so it's, again, difficult. I apologize that I'm giving you guys like in between answers because
fine.
I mean, that's just how it is sometimes.
Yours is a tough question.
Yeah.
Yours, I don't think I can say one thing. Yours, I don't think I can say one thing. So I'm kind of cheating the system here, but like just a couple of really key things that jump out to me are everybody talks about a network. And this would be to any student out there that's trying, you know, especially I know you guys, you're a junior, you two are both seniors, right?
Yeah, I'm good. Well, this is my last.
Yeah, he's a
graduating.
senior. We're both juniors.
You're both juniors.
Yeah.
Okay. I apologize. But like whoever you are, whatever class you're at, people mistake the word networking and they're just like, oh, you got to network, you got to network. Well, I think a lot of people like get faulted by networking being, hey, I'm going to send you one email and if you get back to me, I'm going to say thanks. And I'm going to reply 7 years from now when I realize that you have a job I want. That's don't look at it as networking. Look at it as building relationships. I used to think it was so cool when I could be like, oh, I know him and him and him and him and her. And, you know, she helped me get this. When you have 50 different people you can email, it's cool. But like if 45 of them really don't remember you, then what's the point? You need to identify a small network that you can build relationships within. And those 3, 4, 5 contacts that you have are going to be way more important and they're going to be paramount to your success than as you know, if you were to just kind of, you know, blind email 50 people and then do a one-off exchange with them. If you can keep those relationships with 50 people, best of luck to you and congratulations. That's a great thing to do. Over the course of years, you know, your network, your relationships will swell. You'll have more people. That's the biggest thing. That is number one. And then the other thing is like, be humble. We just did a presentation for, I should have got everybody waters. God, that was killing me. But we just did a presentation for Ohio State University. They're the Bobcats, right?
Ohio
Is that the right
State?
school?
Ohio State or
Oh, you're talking about Ohio University's the Bobcats.
yeah, Ohio.
Sorry. Okay.
And that, yeah,
Ohio State is the Buckeyes.
Yeah.
Okay. So them.
Yeah, Ohio University.
So we did a presentation for a class. They came here and we had a great discussion with them about a month ago. And in there, I mentioned this to them, and I would say this to everybody: this is my last piece. I swear I'll let you guys end this interview. It's way too long.
It's been fun though.
I'm glad. I'm having a great time. But like, be humble. And this is another thing I learned. You know, it's great that you have a college education. It's awesome that you're going to get that piece of paper. It is a piece of paper.
It is.
I'm sorry to say that. Like,
You're right.
I'm not trying to. I apologize to your professors or whoever's watching this video, but they should know it too, that all the work you put in is what increases the value of that piece of paper. You know, otherwise it might as well be your orange $500 bill of Monopoly. Like, it just works as something to look at, you know, because you need to be humble. You need to put your work in. You need to do what you guys are doing right here, which is coming out and coming to organizations and trying to develop those relationships. Because if you just think, oh, well, I went 4 years and I've got my bachelor's of arts or science in communications, so I'm going to get a job that, you know, starts out at $50,000. The reality is that starting job's probably going to be half that salary. You're going to want to live in Cincinnati. Congratulations. But it's
I get that chance.
it's probably going to be out in Casper, Wyoming. It's going to be long hours, even though you say you want to work day shift, you're going to work third. And if you think you're too good for that, you're not going to go anywhere. And that's as blunt as I can be. And I apologize if I have an over-candidness about me with that, but I say it because I've seen people that fall into that trap. I've went to school with people that have fallen into that trap. I almost fell into it when I was graduating, and I thought, I've got all this experience and I had an internship, like I'm ready to shoot for the moon. And I had to be humbled very quick, and it hurts when you're not ready for it, because you realize that you are, and again, I say this with all due respect, like, I want to be in the NHL, right? But at 22 years old, or 22 when I graduated college, like, was I ready for the NHL? No. I'm at 27 years old now. Am I ready for the NHL? No. I need to keep getting better. And as long as you're willing to put the work in, wherever you are, for whatever amount of money it is, and in some cases, no money at all, that is going to help you. So, again, to close this, build relationships. Don't just network. Build relationships and be humble. And if you do those two things, you guys are going to find a lot of success, and you're going to have a long career path in broadcasting or whatever field of choice you're entering.
There you go. You heard it from a play-by-play broadcaster himself. And Andrew, thanks again for coming on with us. This was really interesting. We don't always get to hear a play-by-play broadcaster and their stuff. We usually hear just about the athletes. So this was really neat.
Yeah, thank you guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you for coming on and just dealing with us. We're learning. It's a learning progress.
Yeah,
I'm learning. So everybody's learning every day. No, this was great. Thank you guys so much for being out here, and you're welcome out anytime. Same thing to you guys, any NKU students back there. We're trying to, give, I've been in your shoes before, right? And I know how valuable experience is. So if there's anything we can ever do to help, happy to do so. Awesome. And we appreciate everyone listening. Again, thanks to our crew behind the scenes. They're not on camera, but they're right beside it. And so they're here in our hearts. Yes. Yeah. And again, thanks to Andrew for all of his help in setting this up. And from Noah Miller, Brian Bauer, and myself, Josh Cobb from the Heritage Bank Center. Have a good day, everyone.